Welcome to the first DonorConnect of 2025. I'm Sarah Ramsey, Senior Director of Donor Engagement here at the Community Foundation of Greater Des Moines. The DonorConnect, if you haven't been to one before, it's a conversation series designed to bring our community together to learn about and discuss our region's most pressing issues and promising opportunities. We host these events throughout the year, so stay tuned. We've got a really great lineup coming for 2025. This DonorConnect will focus on our 2024 grant recipients from the Community Foundation's Better Together Fund, which is our community grant making fund. Angie's going to talk more about that. We're just really glad that you're here and part of the discussion today. You are welcome to post any questions that you have in the chat feature, and we'll do our best to work and weave those questions in throughout the conversation. We've got 45 minutes today. We want to be really respectful of your time. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce my wonderful colleague, Angie Detlefs-Trenton, who is our Chief Community Impact Officer. She leads this grant making work and will lead our discussion today. Thank you. Take it away, Angie.
Great. Thank you so much, Sarah. And thank you everyone for joining. I am really excited to spend some time with you today highlighting the work of the Better Together Fund through our grantee spotlight session. And I love an opportunity to not only talk about the power of collectively giving together through the Better Together Fund, but also elevating some of the amazing work happening in our community and the wonderful people and organizations behind that work. So I just want to take a minute as we get started to set the context for what the Better Together Fund is all about. The Better Together Fund was created as a true opportunity for anyone and everyone who loves Greater Des Moines to invest in our region's most critical issues, most promising opportunities, not just to make a difference today, but to make sure that together we can make a difference tomorrow. So simply put, I often think of the Better Together Fund as our community's savings account. It's for individuals, it's for families, it's for businesses, it's for all of those who want to ensure funding will be ready to support this region and position us for continued success in the future as well. So as we get started, on behalf of the grant recipients you're going to hear from, on behalf of the entire community, not just the Community Foundation, thank you. Thank you to those of you who've contributed to the Better Together Fund. Thank you so much to those who have made planned gifts to support the Better Together Fund. To me, the Better Together Fund is really what community is all about. And in 2024, we were able to take that type of investment in our region, that collective goal of making this place even better than it was the day before, and provide some funding to support to some really exciting and visionary projects in Greater Des Moines. So we're going to get started talking about those here with all of you today. And as you probably saw in the promo or the invitation to join the conversation today, we reflected back on that saying that many of you are familiar with, which is home is where the heart is. And I would say in 2024, it was particularly evident in our leadership grant investments. That saying just kept coming to mind for us over and over again, because we were able to make significant grant investments into organizations that were really focused about making sure that Des Moines was home for many people. So today you're going to hear more about Child Serve's Des Moines Center. You're going to hear more about the Monarch, which is a project of Anawim Housing. You're going to hear more about the Beacon Village, and you're going to learn a little bit more about Ellipsis and their initiative called A Place for Girls. These projects, as I'm sure you will learn here soon, are really providing transformative support to youth, to individuals, to their families, and they're providing it at a pivotal time, and our community is grateful. So we're going to have conversations with 4 wonderfully passionate community leaders and learn more about their projects. So the 4 that we're going to hear from today include Dr. Terry Wallig from Child Serve, Chris Anderson from Ellipsis, Amy Landrigan from the Beacon, and also Cynthia Latcham with Anawim Housing. They will all join us on the webinar today. I did ask each of them to begin our conversation with providing a brief overview of the project that received support from the Better Together Fund. And we are going to first invite Dr. Terry Wallig with ChildServe to kick us off today and tell us about this really amazing and yet simple way to expand ChildServe's home in Greater Des Moines. So Terry, turn it over to you to share a little bit about your project. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Angie. Great to be here. And thank you to the Community Foundation team and, of course, all of the community members who are on the call today. Together, we are transforming the lives of children and their families in our community with this project. So, ChildServe is a pediatric specialty healthcare organization. We're serving 5,800 children from across the state in program expertise areas that include complex medical care, pediatric rehabilitation, autism and behavioral health services, and a host of community-based services such as childcare. This funded project is going to help us relocate our Des Moines facility, which is at 24th and Woodland Avenue, to a new location, newer, bigger building where we'll be able to go from serving 60 children at our current location to 600 at the new location. This Des Moines location will be the perfect complement to our Johnston campus. We will be able to lift up and enhance 4 major programs at this new location: medical childcare, pediatric rehabilitation, which is physical, occupational, and speech therapy, our autism program, and behavioral health, which for us includes serving children who have intellectual and developmental disabilities and co-occurring mental health or behavioral health conditions. So truly an enhancement to what we do. Everything we do at ChildServe is based off our strategic plan, which has 3 focus areas: to serve more children, improve our organizational health, and build stronger community partnerships, or as we nickname it, do more, do it better, and do it together. So thank you to the Community Foundation and all of our community members and donors who've come together to help us transform the lives of children and our families in the community. So thank you.
Terry, I loved it at the end when you said do it better. I mean, better together, right? I mean, this is what we always talk about. But you know, one of the things that strikes me is the 60 to 600. And I'm really excited to talk a little bit more about sort of what that expansion of capacity is allowing your organization to do in terms of service. So we'll dive into that here a little bit more, but thank you for that overview and thanks for the beautiful image. We're excited to see everything here, hopefully soon. So would love to, again, thank Terry for your overview, and let's turn now to Ellipsis and their Chief Philanthropy Officer. So Chris Anderson is joining us today. Chris, I'm excited for you to talk a little bit more about, I think, an issue and a challenge that you're addressing that maybe not a lot of folks think about, and that is support for young girls, particularly at transition time, through your recent capital campaign. So Chris, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you so much. And I'll echo Terry's sentiments that we're so extremely appreciative to the Community Foundation for this unbelievable grant that'll help us make strides for providing services for girls in the central Iowa area. And just to take a little step back, Ellipsis was formed as a merger in 2021 between the legacy organizations of Youth Homes of Mid-America and YES, or Youth Emergency Services and Shelter. The idea behind that was we'd be able to provide a much larger continuum of care, and little did we know that we're able to expand on that even more with this Girls Center plans. And one thing that we're so fortunate to have is a great relationship with Health and Human Services within the state. And they came to us and explained that there's a gap in services for girls foster group care in central Iowa. Right now, the closest place for someone in the metro area, for a girl in the metro area to get foster group care, is 2 hours away. And when our ultimate goal is permanency back in the family, having the girls 2 hours away makes it very difficult to be able to reintegrate them into the family again. And so we were very fortunate to find property right off of Merle Hay and Meredith, right in the shadows of Gabus Ford. And we're in the process of renovating currently with the plans to open up in August of 2025 of this year, a center that will provide space for 10 girls for foster group care. And then when they begin to age out of the foster group care system, we actually have a transitional living program called supervised apartment living, which they'll be able to transition up to the second floor, where we'll have 8 apartments there as well. And so this was a huge gap within central Iowa. In fact, the need is about 39 beds. We'd love to be able to address all 39 beds, but it's going to take a while before that ever happens. But at least we're beginning to chip away at it now.
Yeah, again, that number of impact, some people might hear, 10 girls, 39 beds, but the transformative nature that actually presents to the issue that Ellipsis is really addressing and leaning into is a significant dent in the need. And I think that's one of the things that we're really grateful for. Love that you referenced the alignment of Ellipsis coming together, Chris. Talking about Better Together Fund and investing in vision. We were really, really grateful that those organizations came together, and we were proud to support a lot of that exploration and implementation of this collective merger. Because that's what it's all about, is doing the work and doing it well for those who are being served. So excited to hear a little bit more. Thank you for that wonderful overview. Would love to invite now and transition to the Beacon and invite Amy Landrigan. I'm so sorry, Amy Landrigan, of the newly named executive director. I think you said 45 days into your role. Is that right?
Yeah, it's around 45 or 49 days, but yes,
Hey.
over 30. So yes.
Yeah, that's time is fine, but I know that you are motivated by the work of the Beacon and the potential of the Beacon Village, and you certainly know a lot about the work, even in your short time there. So would love for you to give an overview to those joining about the village.
Of course. Thank you so much. So the Beacon, our women's recovery focused shelter with 34 beds for women, is a recovery program and safe haven for women in crisis, women navigating challenges like addiction, homelessness, domestic violence, reentry after incarceration, and other barriers to stability. Our focus in this program and in the village is to provide a trauma-informed environment where women can heal, grow, and rebuild their lives. Building on the success we've had with the Beacon, we launched the Village last year. The Village is an affordable, recovery-focused housing program with 32 single-person units in a women's-only sober living community. It's designed to bridge the gap between emergency shelter and long-term independence, offering women the stability and support they need to take the next steps in their lives. It's just our first year, but the impact has already been profound. 100% of our residents are receiving on-site therapy and case management. 92% remained out of jail, and 94% experienced an increase in income. These outcomes reflect the power of pairing safe housing with holistic wraparound support. But the Village just isn't about housing, of course. It's really about transformation. Every resident receives, like I said, case management, access to on-site therapy, but also financial coaching, weekly AA and NA meetings on site, peer support. We also prioritize connection with community building through socials, like we have something called a coffee corner where we have coffee and tea and just connect with each other. We have craft nights, potlucks, bingo. These programs help women rediscover their potential, overcome isolation, and take meaningful steps towards independence. Whether it's reuniting with their children, pursuing education, or even working to save so they can achieve home ownership, the Village truly provides rooms to thrive. By investing in the Village and our Rooms to Thrive campaign, you're helping us create brighter futures, not just for the women we serve, but truly for our entire community. So thank you for your belief in our mission and truly the belief in the potential of the women we serve.
The numbers that you shared, and I know many of the programs have had similar success, but the idea of 92% were able to not fall into recidivism or return to jail, the increase in income seen by those being served, the comment that you just made, Amy, about wraparound and support is the transformational part, I think is really a powerful perspective to make sure that others understand when it comes to programs and places to live like the Beacon Village. And so we'll be excited to hear a little bit more about what's happening there. And what a wonderful transition and framing to move to our final recipient conversation. So inviting Cynthia Latcham to join us with Anawim, and in particular, their new project, the Monarch Apartments. When we think about what it takes to wrap around someone in housing, Cynthia, I know you know a lot about that. And the Monarch is a new initiative, well, new building. In fact, some of our staff were there yesterday volunteering. Would love for you to share a little bit more about the Monarch and what it means to our region and to those you serve.
Yeah, thank you so much, Angie, and thank you for giving me an opportunity to come and speak about Monarch Apartments. Anawim Housing's mission is to develop stable homes and strengthen people and communities. And we have been operating since 1987 in this realm, both through providing and developing affordable housing, but also in serving populations who've experienced homelessness in our HUD-funded permanent supportive houses. And that is run on a scattered site basis all over Polk County. So we have about 240 units serving over 400 individuals who have left homelessness and are now living in permanent housing. So our scattered site programs really have informed our planning on Monarch Apartments. And we were intent on extending our continuum of housing solutions in order to serve a population that, that we maybe haven't been as successful in serving in our scattered site housing. And so we have about a 94% success rate in retaining people in housing on our scattered site programming. But it's meeting the needs of that 5%, 6% that perhaps need a higher standard of care. And so the Monarch Apartments was born of this idea of, again, filling need in the community, filling a gap in the community. And our organization has managed to remain fairly nimble and adapt to what the needs of the community are. So we came up with this idea, and it wasn't an original idea, but to purchase an existing and operating Days Inn hotel and to transform it into 42 apartments that will operate under a housing first model, serving people literally coming from homelessness. 2 of those units will be reserved for people who have lived experience and will be operating as a peer support, so there will be live-in staff. The housing first model, a couple of really key things that we'll be operating under, and we do this for all of our permanent supportive housing, but every person will be going through centralized intake located at primary health care. And that's to ensure that we are both triaging and assessing the needs of the most vulnerable people in our community. So everyone will have either a serious mental illness, a substance use disorder, will either be medically fragile or perhaps be living with HIV or AIDS. We also plan on serving people who have left domestic violence situations. And we also know that the population we serve on average has about a 40% or higher brain injury rate as that's resulted from a lot of different things in their lives. So the goal is to lower barriers to the housing, to retain people for a long period of time. There's no time limits. This is a person's home. They will have a lease and they will have all the rights and responsibilities that you or I would have if we were living in an apartment. And then our goal is to then offer persistent person-centered case management. And what that means is that we partner with the individuals to ensure that we are talking with them about meaningful goals of things that they would like to do in order to make their lives better. And so we don't dictate what those goals are, but employment is certainly an opportunity. All of these services will be offered on site, and we'll be partnering with a lot of different community partners in order to make sure that we have the correct level of assistance available for every person that comes through our doors.
Yeah, that collaboration I think is key, not just for the success that Anawim has seen, but also the growth, ideas that not only I know you have thought through your work with Anawim, but also all of the other organizations that we've talked with today, and we're going to learn a little bit more from. So I'd like to invite everybody back onto the screen. And, you know, I'm going to go back to that phrase that I used, home is where the heart is. And really this constant thread of all of these funded projects and the definition of what home actually means. And I know some people might be thinking, okay, so child serve. You know, maybe a little bit different. You're not building homes, you're not providing that direct kind of permanent supportive housing kind of framework or things. But yet, when you think about it, like child serve is actually building a new home in Des Moines. And the thing, Terry, that really stuck out to us as we were learning more about this project is the services provided in this new home for child serve are the exact types of services that are needed to ensure quality homes where these families and children are each and every day, whether it's support through things like your child care that you offer, the rehabilitation services, but just that easy access. So, you know, we think too about this powerful number, 60 to 600. I mean, that's just an amazing, you know, dent in that. But just curious if you can expand more about what that means in terms of what families are able to do who are now able to access all the stuff you're talking about.
Truly is a large number of children, but when we think about the families we're impacting, a lot of our services are really come together at the intersection of workforce, education, and healthcare. We're helping moms and dads, families stay actively engaged in the workplace. So many families in Des Moines, in Iowa, have dual parent working households. The other thing our services help is kids get ready for school. The developmental educational programs we offer help kids get engaged in the work and development so they can be successful in school. And we work very closely with our schools. And then healthcare, providing medical, behavioral healthcare services to children at a very critical part in their life, not only helps their well-being, but helps families function better. So many of our services are all done under one roof so that families can get lots of needs met during the daytime in one location so they don't have dozens of appointments throughout the week as they take their child to the different programs they might need. So it really is helping families be stronger. It's helping families with workforce needs, education needs, and healthcare all at once.
Yeah, I love how you said it's really about this intersection of workforce, the intersection of education, the intersection of healthcare. And I'm looking at your, you know, the four of you on this screen, and it's like, boy, I'd have a hard time saying those weren't some of the same focus intersection areas for Anawim, or the same focus intersections with the Beacon Village, and what Ellipsis is doing in supporting the young women who are on the supervised apartment living initiatives that they're running. So I think that that's a really interesting perspective. And, you know, for people who might say, well, there's healthcare over here and there's housing over here and there's education over here, the interconnectedness is so critical when you think about the person being served. So thank you for elevating that. It made a great tie to the other three projects out here, Terry. You know, Chris, I mentioned the supervised apartment living, and we learned a lot more about what that means through this application process for the leadership grant. Can you talk a little bit more about the needs of youth and how a supervised apartment living concept is supporting those who are seeing that as a great place for them to live and grow?
You bet. The supervised apartment living is geared for kids that are beginning to age out of foster group care. It's for kids ages 16 and a half to 21. Unfortunately, those ages are not highly sought after from foster parents. So these kids are pretty much going to age out of the system. And with the supervised apartment living, they're able to move into an apartment that is completely self-sufficient. They have their own kitchen, they have their own bathroom, their own bedroom. Everything they need is right there in that apartment. And we come alongside of them with 24-hour staff that teach them about budgeting, teach them about job applications. If after they graduate high school, if they want to go on to college with FAFSA. So we're trying to teach them all the things that other kids would probably learn from a home environment. But all the kids that we're working with are system involved. So either they've been removed from the house from Health and Human Services, or their system involved through juvenile court system. And so they don't have that home environment. Perfect example, I was just talking with someone on our staff yesterday that our supervised apartment living on our Legacy Yes campus or South campus that just came up last year or came online last year. There was a one of the kids that had eggs out on the countertop, and that's where they kept the eggs. They didn't know that they were supposed to be kept in the refrigerator. So it's little things like that that the staff is able to help with and get them ready. So when they do age out of supervised apartment living at 21, they have the tools necessary to truly be on their own.
I want to, kind of pivot a little bit from what we were anticipating, and Amy, ask you to speak a little bit to that, because when I think about the women and that you're serving through the Beacon, in particular those that might be leaving incarceration. Some of what Chris is saying, I think, also is showing up in your work every day. How talk to me a little bit about kind of the value of that environment, similar for the women you're serving, and how you're seeing that same approach transform their lives.
Yeah, it was funny whenever you told that story about the eggs, Chris, that reminded me of, so yesterday we had a woman who moved in Tuesday to the Beacon Village, and she was a graduate from the Beacon. So that was really nice to really see that transition happen so smoothly. But she had all these bags of groceries and she was just glowing. And so I asked, what's going on? Are you baking something? Are you excited? And she said, I've never had a fridge of my own to fill. And I'm gonna get emotional, sorry. It was just really beautiful because she'd been in prison for 20 years. Her parents got her started in selling and she didn't know any better. She was 12 years old. And now she, even living here, we of course have a fridge, but everybody has their own space that they have because we have 34 women living here. And so she has a full-size fridge for the first time in her life. It's all hers. And she had a lot of questions. And we talked about different things to do with that fridge and what that looks like. But you're right that having that support and having people to surround you, that's what really makes a difference. We take community for granted, I think. Those of us that have family and friends and just people, even here, like I know I can call Cynthia if I ever have a question, and she's been a wonderful mentor in that way. Most of these people we serve, they don't have that, and Chris, the work you're doing, and same with you, Dr. Terry, it's you're catching them earlier. You're working with them in different ways. We have so many women here that they have disabilities they didn't know they had. Neither did their parents, and the prison system didn't find it either. So it's just we have these people that they need that support and they deserve it. And we say here at the Beacon, we're not giving a second chance. We're really giving a first real chance at life. But that holistic wraparound support, that's truly what's needed to help these people move out of survival mode and move into thriving.
Well, Cynthia, to the Monarch, you talked about in the number of units that you're bringing online through that particular complex also includes 2 for individuals who have lived experience, who have been perhaps in the same example Amy gave about never having a fridge of their own. And one of the things I've learned in homelessness is really, if people had an option, they would be in a home, not on the street. And so talk a little bit about sort of how the same conversation is showing up in the work of the Monarch.
Yeah, I really appreciate that question. And as I've sat here and sort of listened to everyone talk before me, which was the benefit of getting to go forth, it really hits me how we are impacting an entire continuum of care at really critical points of intervention. And so we know that childhood trauma, and we need to be shifting our understanding of what childhood trauma is and how that impacts children's brains, and how then there has a lifelong impact. We need to look at what happens when people are incarcerated. We know that children that age out of foster care are much more likely to end up in homelessness and long-term homelessness in the future. So I look at the Monarch as being the place where we are serving the population where there has been a progression of cascading catastrophic system level errors and failures, where we are serving a population and really the last home. And so because of that, there's not a good understanding of all that went before. the time that we are today. And there can be a lot of biases and myths around why doesn't this person just get a job? There was a gal camping out in front of our Monarch for a while. And, you know, the question was, well, why doesn't she get a job? Well, we talked to her and she's 78. So at what point should she be getting a job? You know, whatever system, safety net systems existed for her are long gone. And she's living outside in the wintertime. And so we really need to address biases and myths and the understanding that when people are living outside, almost every single time they are offered housing, they accept it. But then it's incumbent upon us to make sure that we are providing the tools to support that long-term tenancy. Because to Amy's point, talking about not wanting to do, not knowing what to do with a refrigerator, how to have, you know, or have your own refrigerator, eggs on the counter, those skills get lost after being living outside for a long time. You flex other muscles and other skills in order to survive outside. And sometimes those relationships are very transactional and unhealthy, and a lot of unhealthy coping skills. So it really takes a long period of time to make that shift to internal house. And living inside. And then we still see a lot of survival activities still continue once we house people. So it's a long period of transition. And while we know if we stick with people for the long haul, they're going to be successful for the most part, we still need to make long-term commitments to these individuals.
Yeah, I would imagine many of you have seen the same kinds of things in conversations and with other organizations and other partnerships that you've been in. You know, I was, as you were talking, I was thinking about certainly the passion that's needed by all of your staff. By, you know, the board members that come around to support you in setting strategic vision, but really all of your staff that are day-to-day working with, you know, the child or the family that needs a particular deep level of care and support, Terry, or, you know, Amy helping to, you know, celebrate with the woman who is seeing a refrigerator in her own space for the first time, and everything in between. The other thing that you talked about reminded me of the sort of unique positions of each of your organizations, because you're so hands-on at moments of challenge, that intersection of unexpected and then like vulnerability of unknown too. Like maybe it's a diagnosis with a kiddo or something. How does your staff, I just want to talk about your staff a little bit. How does your staff kind of stay invigorated, stay focused, stay supported to do this really hard work day in and day out with those that you're serving in such an interesting, vulnerable space? Anyone curious about that?
I know for our staff, 40% of our team graduated our program. And so they have the same vulnerabilities as the women in this house. And even though their recovery journey is going really well right now, things happen in life. And so I know we try to bring the same principles we bring to the women here to our team. You know, we make sure we're caring for each other as a team. We make sure that everyone knows the access of our benefits and that, you know, they need to take their time when they have PTO. And we're lucky enough, we have a small team, we have unlimited PTO, and we do that because we want our case managers to be able to take time. We also do some things that I played sports, so I like to call it kind of a tap out where, hey, you had a rough day. Let me take over. You go home. Take it easy. And we do that same thing with the women we serve, and that when they're having a rough day, when they've had a really hard time at work, let's do some breathing exercises, and then it's okay to go sit and relax or take a walk or eat something. It's okay. Like, it's okay. We call it space for grace. We make sure we give each other space for grace as a team, the same way we do for the women in our two homes.
We're just so blessed to be surrounded by kids. And we tap into that every day. We say we believe in the spirit of a child, and even children who have every strike against them and seem like they have such unsurmountable challenges have a spark and a spirit, and it's tapping into that. You know, it's that spirit of joy and hope. And so by tapping into that, I think that's what really inspires us, but also helps sustain us on those really hard days.
As I'm out in the community, I've heard numerous times where people thank, as I'm the representative at a presentation or a meeting or whatever the case is, People say, thank you so much for the work you do. I'm very quick to say, it's not the work that I do, it's our direct care staff, and they are absolutely unbelievably amazing. I talk about how I'm not wired to do what they do because I couldn't leave all this behind when I go home. They have the passion every single day to come in, work with these kids that have had very, very difficult lives, and know that if there is a kid that doesn't have the right coping skills and takes it on the staff, they know it's not personal. They're very, very resilient. And one thing that Chris Copeland, our CEO, has instilled in the organization is it's the first two questions we ask. Whatever we do, is it the best thing for the kids? Is it the best thing for the staff? And to have a CEO put so much emphasis on staff, I think that comes through in just in spades.
Well, probably, I was thinking, Terry, what you had said about really finding ways to tap into the spirit of joy and hope. I'm guessing that is also something that you probably see every day with the staff at Ellipsis, Chris, too. This idea about you get energy from where you see potential, and it's hard, but I'm sure that's some of it too. Cynthia, reflections for you at all about sort of the staff and the services that they're providing?
So sometimes I feel like my staff, well, first of all, they are some of the most absolutely tenacious, hardworking folks that I've ever met. And they deal with situations that would make your hair curl sometimes. But I can tell you that sometimes when I send them out every day, I feel like they're going out to hug porcupines, because, you know, the folks that we're serving are tough, and they've had some tough lives. And I think that they have my staff has an inherent ability to really see through all of that, maybe see through even the diagnoses and the behavior, to again realize that fundamentally we know that housing is a fundamental right for human beings, and that everyone deserves that safe, affordable place to live. And so, you know, we root in that core belief that housing is the great equalizer. And without housing, we don't see successful, you know, children become successful. We don't see, you know, people go on through school and get jobs. So it's such a critical intersection for people that, you know, they get it. They get it, and they live it every day.
Thank you for that. As predicted, our time is getting a little short at the end. I love a chance to visit with everybody, but I didn't want to miss an opportunity to give each of you a chance to just reflect on either the biggest challenge or barrier, something that you think is really important for donors to understand, that perhaps they can be involved with, to make sure that you and your team are able to tap in and lean in to those moments of change. So I'm going to just open it up, but if you could share something with our donor community around challenge or barrier and how they can help, I think that would be great.
I'll step in. The primary source of funding for child service is through Medicaid. So we can run operations with the funding we receive for the services we provide. There's just nothing left at the end of the day to enhance our programs, buy expensive technology and specialized equipment, or build buildings and allow us to grow. So that's where we rely on, we tap into the community, the generosity of the people around us to help us enhance what we do through philanthropy. And that's so critical to helping us do really what we do better, but also do more of what we do and grow.
I think that's a good reminder.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry, Chris. I was just gonna say, I do think that that's a really good reminder, because there are folks who are not in the business of understanding most of us are not in the business of understanding healthcare financials. Let's just be clear, Terry. But I think that there can be this assumption that there's billable services, billable hours, you're gonna get covered for those funds, let alone the innovation piece, let alone the growth piece, let alone the adapting to new needs. And so I do think that that's an important message. Some donors are very well versed, but many, you pause and ask that question about where that funding's come from and where it allows organizations to lean in differently. Sorry, Chris, I interrupted you.
No, that's fine. And along the same thing, Terry, that you were mentioning, we're funded through the state, through contracts, but that doesn't cover all the costs. And there's that gap that I talk about, margin of excellence, where we're able to provide additional services for these kids that are going through very, very difficult times in their lives, or if we're able to work in our community-based services to get to the families before the kids need to come see us, we're able to provide a lot more of that at a higher level than if we were to rely just on the contracts alone.
I like that margin of excellence. That's great. Other reflections, Cynthia?
You know, the funding need is always there. You know, with our scattered site permanent supportive housing, we're awarded about $4 million annually. And anytime we accept those HUD dollars, we know that there is an additional 25% match on that $4 million. So just for getting to operate these grants, Anawim has to kick in an additional $1 million a year that we have to be able to verify as being allowable costs. And that is a huge burden for our organization. And it's also a really hard thing to be able to fundraise for, right? Like, why do you have to fundraise for this 25% match, and why can't you get it changed? It takes an act of Congress, by the way. So there will be no change to that. But I think that that's a big one. And then again, just trying to talk about that people deserve housing. You know, I pay attention to what people say, and you know, there's this idea, well, they should be veterans, or they should be working, or they should, you know, but there's always going to be a very slim part of the population who is unable to do those things. And that is really who we're serving, that the primary goal is just keep them in housing. And so trying to make that that argument that we're not necessarily going to be moving people to a place of self-sufficiency. Remember, if we're at the end of the river, we're at the bottom of the waterfall. Moving people up the waterfall again and into self-sufficiency probably isn't going to happen.
Amy?
Yeah, I echo what everyone has already said. I know one challenge we face is we want to do it all. You know, we see the people we serve have so many needs, and I know all of us in this call, and probably a lot of people here in this just in this chat and this webinar, we want to help everybody. That's why we're here. That's why we're in this line of work. That's why we have these passions, but we have to stay within our mission, and we have to stay within our budget. And I know with the village, we want to be able to house everyone, but it's a very specific program. It's about recovery. It's about trauma. It's about sobriety. And that can be a challenge at times when I'll have people that they want to work with us, which I love, but they want us to do all these other things. And unless they are funding it 100% themselves, it's normally not going to happen, unfortunately. And again, it has to stay within the focus and the mission. I think often nonprofits, we can get caught up in chasing the money and chasing a grant and chasing something, and knowing that we have each other. The Beacon is so fortunate. We have so many partners in the community that we can talk to and connect with. And we reach out to these amazing people, like those of you on this call, to say, hey, we can't do this, but you do this beautifully. Can we work together to make sure the people we serve are fully covered? So that's a challenge, is that we want to do it all. And the reality is that we can only do so much.
Well, you all do a lot, and grateful for the overview that you provided today. You know, things that I'm just capturing in my mind is, you know, this idea about wraparound support is transformational, remembering that for our community. I love tap into the spirit of joy and hope. That just makes me smile. This idea of really understanding the intersection and the power of workforce, education, and healthcare, and how that is so important for each and every one of your organizations here today. I also like this, you know, for donors to think about, find ways to invest in the margin of excellence. I think that's an interesting way to think about it. And it's really all of what you're talking about. I mean, there's some funding coming in for the things you do, but it takes a lot more to get all those things done well. And so I think that's a great challenge to our donor community, is to think about how they can really consider the margin of excellence for our nonprofit partners. So thank you so much for sharing about these inspiring projects, and just really giving the Community Foundation the opportunity to partner with you through a leadership grant. It really is an honor, because you are all doing the work in your staff teams, and we're grateful. For those of you who joined us today, I really hope that these kinds of conversations help shed light, maybe introduce you to a new concept or idea, help you understand more about the interconnectedness of our nonprofit partners. They work together, they know each other, they respect each other, and they're making big things happen in our community. If you'd like to learn more about how you can lean in and connect to causes you care about, whether it's these 4 projects and organizations or others, please let the Community Foundation know how we can help. We'll put up on the screen here real quick as we end today, Give DSM, visit Give DSM, search by interest area, learn more about organizations and projects. And if you'd like to have an exploratory conversation with anybody on our staff team to learn more about how you can, again, connect to those causes you care about, please don't ever hesitate to reach out. We'd love to come alongside you in your giving and help support organizations in our community making a big change. So be watching for a summary email from today. So pleased to have you join us. Thank you again to our 4 guests. Thank you for the work that you do. And can't leave a Community Foundation webinar without saying we are simply better together. Thank you so much, everybody. Enjoy your day and the weekend ahead. Bye-bye.